Howdy, everyone, and welcome in today. I know what you're thinking. Oh, we're going to talk about jewelry today. No, we're not. But before I get started, I want to welcome you all in and also say that a lot of times people have said, we don't understand why you paint your fingernails, and I don't have an explanation for it. But for those that don't like a long intro and are kind of annoyed by, the stupidity that comes with my channel, and look at how great I am. It looks like a 4-year-old's doing this. Look how great I did. Look at that. I'm amazed. A 51-year-old, 51-year-old male, doing the job of a obviously 10-year-old 10-year-old girl. I did get paint in there, so I guess you just go like that. I don't know. I just made it all the worse. All right, that's for all the people that don't like my fingernail polish. I specifically did it for you. I think it looks fantastic. I did an excellent job, didn't I? Look how quick. All right, so here's the thing. We'll get this out of here, and the other reason why I don't do my nails late at night is because I got I got my fingernails stuck in my beard one night because they weren't dry. Anyways, that's the what do they say, the casualty of of having a beard and painting your fingernails. All right, so I guess there is only one of me in the world, and I'm sure most people are very glad for that. This is one of the diamonds that I bought at the Don Scott Antique Show, and this is in a previous video, if I did these in chronological order, because I record these at all hours of the day and all hours of the night. And this one is the half-carat diamond, but why I brought this back is I did get this cleaned up. It was very, very, very dirty in that video, and look at that dazzle and sparkle. For a half-carat diamond and a gigantic 14-karat gold band ring with that little swoosh on the side of side stones. Anyways, fantastic. That is coming to a sale on Bully Run, and of course I got this one cleaned up, and look at this one now that I got it cleaned up. 18-karat gold, platinum, fancy colored diamonds, a very large marquee diamond, those shoulders that swell with those baguettes, and I love the craft and the design of this. So that came from Don Scott as well. Does need a little restoration on the tip of the marquee diamond, which I will get addressed. I really love that for a marquee. I'm not normally a fan of marquee diamonds, but in that one, definitely a fan, and I love that very, very much. Now, let's get into why we're here. And why we're here is very simple today. The title of the video probably got you here. And what we're going to look at is vintage and antique clothing buttons. Now, before you leave, or before you stomp your foot and say, I'm only here for jewelry, I'm only here for comedy, I'm only here to watch a 50-year-old paint his nails, what I want to tell you about this video is, I can't believe some of the things I say. What I want to tell you about this video is clothing buttons, and antique clothing buttons specifically, are worth an extraordinary amount of money. Let me show you these top 7 that are out of my personal holdings and out of my personal collection. When I tell you that I have tens of thousands of antique clothing buttons, people think of a button as just a plastic, disposable throwaway. Who cares if it falls off your shirt? Who cares if the button off your jeans falls off? You just get a safety pin and pin them together. I will say this, that antique clothing buttons have been fascinating to me because they are miniature works of art. And let's face it, antique clothing buttons are jewelry for clothing. They're jewelry for accessories, for accessorizing fashion, is what I meant to say. These are historically beautiful creations. Look at this screen back with the large wolf head, and then that cut steel border. 1870, 1880, absolutely beautiful for a screen back button. And because of the size of this button, this is worth around $200 to $250 right now. I bought this one years ago for $15. So you've got to look at Goodwill. You've got to stop and slow down at the thrifts. You got to look in bag lots, box lots, yard sales, cigar boxes. Ask when you go to an estate sale or a yard sale, ask them, do you have grandma's old button box? Do you have grandma's old sewing stand? Start to dig and look. This one is paste in sterling silver. This is circa 1780 to 1790 in solid sterling silver. This button cost me, I think this one cost me $200 at a national show years ago, and I was recently offered $300 and I declined it. What makes this unusual is the size of those paste stones. I have covered paste stones before. They are leaded, crystal leaded glass. This one does have a small chip, but they are a very fragile stone. But look at how those are all set down in that sterling silver. And notice the color shift underneath those. I've covered this before as well. Every single one of these stones that is set in the sterling has a piece of silver foil behind them that has oxidized and tarnished over the years to give them that multicolor kind of yellow flash that comes from within those stones. They look like diamonds. That button is fantastic. Can you imagine the outfit that was on way back then? This is considered a gay 90s, and yes, we are allowed to say gay 90s. This is from 1890. It is brass. It has the original shank system. Look at that check glass stone on the inside. What a daring color. A flaming orange with lavender, electric purple. Think about those colors back in 1890. I've challenged people to understand that Victorian fabrics weren't just black, charcoal gray, earth tone, creamy, tan. They had bright and bold colors, bright and bold satins and silks and iridescent fabrics. This button must have matched an incredible jacket that was in this probably electric orange and purple. Look at the detail of that button as well with the rhinestone accents. Incredible button. That one's probably worth now around $200 because of the size. This one I paid dearly for. I fought for this on eBay years ago. Initially, it was thought that this inset or insert medallion with this leaf and berry design was celluloid. We've now realized that that is pressed horn. That is pressed animal horn that is pressed into a mold of those leaves and berries, made to look like a carved cameo. Cut steel border, brass construction, 1890, CIRCA dating 1890, maybe into 1900, possibly. That button cost me $325. And people would say, why on God's green earth would you pay $325 for that? And I would say, please find me another one. That's what I would say. My answer would be, they say, what would your answer be? And I'd say, find me one. And I'll buy another one. So that one is just an incredible survivor as well. This one is peacock eye glass. I think I have 4 of these in my collection, this size and design. I think I bought 4 altogether, or I bought 3 altogether and found one years later. This one with all the cut steels. Yes, there are 2 that are missing. That as is still worth around, because the size of it, it's worth around $300. Now, you might be able, to get it at $200, but you might have to pay $400 for it as well. There is an awful lot of money in clothing buttons. You have to understand this. And this one, see, doesn't that look like a very expensive button? Look at that lady playing her mandolin with the flowing gown on that dragonfly with those cut steel wings. Again, a chased and engraved border by hand. That's completely hand-worked with that stippling border all the way around. Look at how the cut steel are riveted through. Those are cut steel. These are all hand created. These are all handcrafted. Imagine getting a detail on something so small. They're miniature works of art. Let's face it. Clothing buttons are miniature works of art that artisans and craftspeople labored over. This one around $165 to $195. You might find it a little less, $125, and you might find it with someone for like $275. The prices of the antique and vintage world are always subjective. They're always driven by supply and demand. This one is coralline, and why I bring this one on is this is technically coralline. Little balls or spheres of glass that are applied to the surface that was hand painted. That's all glass with a metal insert, a four-way shank on the back. Haven't gotten into discuss the shank systems on buttons, the way they're attached to the clothing. Some are self-shank, meaning they have like a molded glass on the back, and some are metal, like that, to where the shank system is inserted into the molten glass. That is coralline. If you find this kind of granular or sugar-like coating on jewelry or beads, it is considered ballottini. So applied onto a button or a vase, a lot of times you'll see Japanese vases with the coralline applied to the surface. Sometimes you'll see English glass with enamel work, Victorian, that has coralline application. When it's on an object like a button or a vase or a compote or a bowl, it will be called coralline. When it's applied to the surface of jewelry, it transitions over to the word ballottini. Let's be clear on that one as well, just to have clarification on terms. This box I bought in amongst a big collection of jewelry, and when I was on my way home, I got another call from a family, and they said, "Our mother has passed away. She was a very big fan of yours locally at the estate sales. She's passed away, and we have some of her items for sale. We know you buy jewelry, we know you buy decorative arts, we know you buy paintings and bronzes and sculptures and art pottery and art glass. Anything old, that's what people know me for here." And they said, there is some jewelry, there are some antiques, and there is some glassware that you might be absolutely fascinated with. I went over, I didn't find anything in jewelry, I didn't find anything in glassware or decorative arts, and a lot of the pieces were just not desirable to me because the market is not there for so many of the collecting categories and subcategories of collecting. However, I brought the box in with me because they said we don't have anything big enough to store some of these, so they are clothing buttons. So I had this box in my car from the jewelry collection that I bought down in South Canton, Ohio. So I had this box inside my car, and I said, let me go empty the 3 necklaces that are in the box. I'll bring this back in, and I will load up the buttons. I have grouped these together because they were loose, so I did put them in a bag, and I grouped up all of these over here. What I wanted to show you is what I look for in such collections. They offered me this collection of buttons for $50. That's what they offered it to me for. They said, we would like $50 for the buttons. And I said, there's a lot more value here. I'll pay you $150. So I gave them $100 more than what they wanted. And the reason why is I saw true value. These are waistcoat buttons. These are glass, and these are set in metal. Some people will call them Cheshire. That depends on the glass insert to start calling them Cheshire buttons. But these are waistcoat or gentleman's vest buttons. That's like a little Jenny Lind. She's known as Jenny Lind in the button collecting world. There have been some names that have been put on buttons that are in the books that now are known to be something else. So I always say to people, please be careful with the information in books because it does change over the years. Books will give you a very strong foundation. These are between, depending on the design and the complexity of the cane of the glass, those are between $8 and about maybe $15 to $20 a piece. So that's their kind of range on those. They used to be much more desirable, and now that has gone a little bit down. These are considered charm string glass, these miscellaneous ones here. We'll see a charm string here in just a moment, so we can clarify that term. Then these are drum buttons. This one and this one are called drum buttons because they are like a metal drum that's then inset mostly with glass, sometimes reverse painted like this, and sometimes molded like that. When you get into figural things like a flower or something more figural like a head or a dove, a bird, some sort of like fly or insect, the common motifs of the Victorian times, then you can get into higher money. On that little bag of charm string glass with a little, I believe that's a coronet. I'm going to draw a blank on the term there. This is a swirl back. So see how that's like gathered on this little hoop? So that's a swirl back button. Those with the drums, that's probably another about $30 to $45. This is very unusual. Look at that one. I love that button. That's really fantastic with that check glass cabochon. You've got to remember these buttons still show up. They absolutely are still out there. So you've got to look. These are absolutely great for like almost paperweight buttons. See that cage-like construction, that cage-like shank that is put into the molten metal. Absolutely exquisitely crafted. And look how small these are. But can you imagine the outfit that was on, whether it be a small vest or a blouse? Incredible. A lot of times people are actually using these buttons in doll clothing, doll restoration. And I see why, because they're absolute treasures. What I do is I race home, I kind of group them up, and then I do put them onto cards. If you have not seen my button collection video, please go over and watch it. That house was filled with collectors, buttons, trays that she competed with. And yes, there are button competitions for lunatic collectors like myself. And I used to do button shows all the time. I did them twice a year. In Ohio and Pennsylvania. My mom would go with me and we would set up. We had a great time. And of course, my mom would always say to me, "Did you make any money or did you spend all your profits?" And we would laugh all the way home knowing that I'd spent every profit that I had made at the show. So my Raj set of Indian Raj buttons, those are now worth around $3,000 for 5 buttons. There is money in buttons. So definitely slow down and do your research. And please share this video out with anyone in your community that you know goes to the thrift stores, goes to consignment shops, goes to yard sales, goes to flea markets. All of these are glass buttons. And look at that one. And look at this one. Look at the detail of some of these. And I should take these out of the bag and show you. Look at the enamel work on that one. These are all CIRCA dating right around 1870 through about 1900. I don't see anything in this bag very much so after 1900. Look at that paperweight with those beautiful scrolls of red and kind of that metallic gold. Another paperweight. See, doesn't that look exactly like a desk paperweight with the inserted shank? Look at that button. I have a whole card of paperweight buttons. And to be honest with you, I think I have 4 cards of paperweight buttons. I can't help myself. Look at that one for a lamp work and paperweight. And there's another one on a black base. I could lose myself in these. This one might be a kaleidoscope. No, that one's a swirl back. But kaleidoscopes were one of my... Oh, that is a kaleidoscope. It has the tin back on it. That's a kaleidoscope. I hope that I can make this claim. I think I have the largest collection of kaleidoscope buttons in the United States. I should do like a challenge and say... whoever has kaleidoscope buttons out there on YouTube or in the world, could you contact me and come on my channel and can we do a comparison contrast of our collections? The button world is highly competitive, and I've been after kaleidoscopes for 27 years. I think I have total of 42 buttons per card. I think I have, let me make sure I tell you right. I think I have 13 cards, and I didn't repeat any color or any pattern, and kaleidoscopes are very, very fragile, so extremely expensive now as well. This is a design under glass set in brass. Let me see if I could find that one that is, these are just picture buttons. They're Victorian, very common. You know, that's like a $5 button, but very common. Let me see. Oh, here's the one. I think this is the Comet. Yeah, this is the Comet button. Look at that for the Comet with these trails. Hand engraved on the brass. I think this comes in 2 sizes, and I think this is the largest. Look at that trail of cut steel and the motion of that. I would say on that one, in construction, it's definitely late 1800s. A remarkable cut steel star, Comet, shooting star. That's just... I mean, do you understand that that's, you know, over 130 years old now? 130 years old and so contemporary designed. This is very early. This is possibly 1700s. And we'll talk about the construction and the metal on this one eventually. But that one now, years ago, I think these are going for like 150 to 175. I think now it's probably down to like 100, 125. Some of these earlier ones have gotten easier to find over the years. But that really thick shank says, I am very early. Can you imagine if you found 10 of those in a jar at Goodwill, and the Goodwill jar was like, you know, $9.99 or something incredible? They will miss things very frequently. This is an oyster shell. I have this in 3 sizes. That's pressed brass oyster shell. Very remarkable for a realistic. A lot of glass buttons with that luster. And look how beautiful that is. Again, cage construction for the shank, 1890, dating on that one. Let's get into the charm string. Oh, the castle one's really cool in pressed glass. Let's get into, I gotta do this one too. This is called precision inlay. This is what's called precision inlay. These are late 40s into the 1950s. Cut crystal, cut leaded glass, and then look how that is inset in there as a little lampwork tile that's like precision inlay. See how like there's almost no gap in between that inlaid paperweight style and then completely faceted? Is that not the most beautiful button? Now, value is really low. I consider it very low on these. I know that the value will go up on these because it has over the years, but I think years ago these were like, you know, $3 to $10. Now they're like $35, $45, sometimes $55. And I think that's going to go up. I really do. I think that's going to go up. Oh, this one. I wanted to show you this one because that is moss agate. They actually set a moss agate stone, a hard stone, in a collar and used it as a button. Look how thick the shank is. 1850, 1860, moss agate. So stone, so you can get gemstones. This is Bakelite. It's a zipper pull. That's really cool. I used to collect these bicolored, green and black, and then carved. But it's a zipper pull. Went on a jacket, and it'd be the pull on the end of the zipper. Now, let's get into these. Now, there are loose buttons in the bottom. There's ones what I like to talk about, Victorian glass with clovers, sure. What I like to talk about, this one that sometimes has a wooden kind of over dye on that, yes. That one looks like coral. It's not. It's glass. It's gathered glass. And then I did want to talk about, I had a Bimini glass button that I didn't think much of, and it just sold for a fortune. And I'm not sure exactly why. Probably because maybe someone's doing a Bimini collection, you know, like a competition, like a national competition. Let's close that. Let's put these on here. And this is a charm string. So now when we talk about charm string glass buttons, they need to be Victorian to be technically charm string. So they need to be Victorian. Every single button on here, with maybe that as an exception. And let me see here. That's an exception right here. So that's not Victorian. I think that's the only one that's not. I would say that by eye, that's the only one that's not. Charm strings are fascinating. And there's a lot of stories about charm string buttons and their meaning and trading. And then about like a girl getting 100 buttons, or I forget the total story. The story depends on the button dealer you talk with or button collector you talk with. But charm string was used for a young girl, and then when she would get like her 100th button, that's when she would find her perfect husband. Or it went along that lines. And it was a sentimental thing, but also it was great for girls to collect clothing buttons and to trade them amongst family members and friends and girls at school. You know, we used to, in the 80s, we used to trade garbage pail cards. Garbage pail kids. I would have much rather gotten really colorful, carnival luster buttons from the Victorian time period, but they had their ways of building collections back then. And then there was rumor that there was a gentleman or a company that was like buying like a charm string of like 1,000 buttons for like a certain amount of money, and they were like actually buying the charm strings back in the day. That's a fascinating side note, and there's been whispers about that at these national shows for a long time. I could never get a straight answer out of the advanced dealers and the advanced collectors on that was once thought about. I believe that is a coronet. Is it a coronet? Coronet? I'm going to draw a blank on that. I believe it's a coronet. With that crown that's been applied to the surface. 1870. Sometimes they're a little earlier. I always go conservative on my dating of pieces. I love this green foil one. I love this one. That's popper glass, and it should have a little key shank. Let's see here if it's got the little key shank. Yeah, it's got the little key shank on it. So it's got like a key kind of shank that is inserted, like a flat disc that looks like a key that's been inserted into that. That's Leo Popper glass. Very unusual glass. There's one of the bugs. There's a fly with enamel. That's Victorian. And then we're coming down here, and I wanted to keep the video 25 minutes, and look at us go. I'm at 26. This I do not think is antique. It might be. That might be an enamel now that I'm looking at it. So that might actually, in fact, be Victorian. A little sparse in design for a Victorian. Love the cobalt with those grand polka dots in white. There's another paperweight. I love these as miniature works of art. There's another popper glass. It's got the key shank. Should have the key shank. That's a Leo Popper glass button. And Google Leo Popper. Fascinating information. Also, I've talked about his stones and faux stones that are glass being used in jewelry. This is probably a Chinese button here. They call it a pin stem or a pin shank, one or the other, depending on who you talk with. I call it a pin shank, is what I call it. See how the pin goes all the way through and creates the shank? There's another hand gathered. See that swirl? Absolutely 1800s, and then faceted on the top with that cranberry glass. Love these either little glove or shoe buttons. Those are probably glove. These are probably glove. Could you imagine some of these not being lost to time? Now there's a Nielsen. Here it is. This is Nielsen glass, what I considered Nielsen or Nielsen. I say Nielsen. And this one is a very rare glass button. That alone is worth around $100 to $125 still to this day. I think they were up to like $150. I remember one of my dealer friends did pay $150 for one of them. I would say on a bad day that's still $85 to be realistic. $85 for a glass button. What if you found that? You found 10 of these in again a cigar box at a yard sale for $5. You're in the driver's seat. Put them on eBay. List them separate. Take good pictures. You're going to make a fortune. There is absolute money in antique buttons. And I did help a collection one time. This is a long time ago. This looks coralline, but that actually is a synthetic of coralline. It's reverse painted. So if you see that, do not assume that is coralline. That's textured glass, not the little glass balls kind of, sandwiched together. That one's reverse painted. That is not coralline. That is faux coralline. That's only worth about, $3. I would say maybe $5 at the most. But if that was coralline, it's $85 for a Coraline button. The values have come down. Desirability, availability, the values have come down over the years in antique and vintage buttons. Look how dynamic that looks, like a modernist painting. That's from 1890 to 1915, all glass button. I get crazy excited. Then we could talk about dewdrops and radiance and all the different terms that these buttons have. We could get into that into coming videos if you desire. There's another swirl back, but these are considered charm string glass buttons. So if you ever hear of charm string glass, that's exactly what we're talking about in the collection. And look at me go. I've got 20 seconds to say goodbye to all of you for the day. Thank you so much for joining in. If you like modernist silver, stay tuned for a video coming up on modernist sterling silver from the 1950s and the 1970s. Round 2, ding ding. Thank you so much for joining in. Go forward with peace and love. I love you because I do. Goodbye.